Okay, I am Hamish, this is Stan, and welcome to another episode of Civil Banter. We are two civil litigators at Nelligan Law, helping people through injuries, insurance fights, and all of life's legal curveballs.
Hey, well, look at this. We're now on episode 15 from Docks to Dockets, and we're going to talk about a little boat law today. But before we do that, you've got the return of one of our earlier segments. I think it's a fan favorite.
Yep, we're back with the reasonable Stan. So in this episode, this is a good case, and I've mixed up the format. We've gone back to the CCLA Civil Damages Compendium. So, www.ccla-abcc.ca. This is the County of Carleton Law Association's Compendium of Damages and Personal Injury Awards. So it's basically a panel of lawyers put together and update this huge spreadsheet slash database with all the different civil actions where there have been damages that have been assessed in personal injury actions. It probably goes back to like the early 2000s, and it's
I think it's even further back than that.
yeah. I guess I'm basing this on the damages heads I was looking at specifically, but it's basically just East Region. This is how people assess damages, and it's a really good tool for lawyers to go and look at when they're seeing their personal injury case and seeing like how has this actually been treated when it's got to a trial and judges have looked at a fractured elbow, a fractured knee, a concussion.
Well, for new listeners, this is a segment we did in most of our first episodes where Hamish would give me some facts from a recent or recent-ish decision, and I would try and guess how much the court awarded that plaintiff for the damages that the injuries that they sustained. My first guess, I was way off. I got a lot better
You got
as
close.
it went along, but it's been a little while, so maybe the rust is there. We'll see.
Okay.
Let's see. What do you got for me today?
So I went on the CCLA and I looked up on the compendium damages for head, specifically teeth. Teeth. So
I can't say that I've done a lot of teeth-specific personal injury. I've done some dental malpractice, yes, but not a lot of. Is this in the context of a car accident?
It's not.
Okay.
It is medical negligence for oral surgery.
Okay.
Okay. So I'm going to be sending you out some facts, and you're going to have to live with the facts. You're going to digest them. They're going to stew, and then you're going to spit out your general damages assessment, and I'll let you know how close to the mark you are.
Let's have it.
So we're going to be looking at Dickey and Minette, which is a 2012 decision, so a little bit older, and this decision was dismissed for a lack of negligence.
Okay, so don't worry about the liability side of things. We're just here. The court still assessed damages, even though the defendant was not ultimately liable.
Yeah, which is always really helpful to see when they say, well, you didn't succeed. Had you succeeded, this is what we would say your damages were.
It's nice to see that. It does help us evaluate cases on a go-forward basis, even where there isn't that decision on liability. So that's good. It's 14 years old, so I have to kind of reverse the inflationary effects over the last few years and see what things were worth back when I was in law school.
Yep. So in this case, we have Robert, who's a construction laborer, and most importantly, Robert has been playing the bagpipes for the past 32 years.
So Robert's a Scotsman, or he's got some Scot ancestry.
Now, it really is kind of the center of the case and the center of his life. He competed at a professional level. He was in various bagpiping bands. And prior to the dental surgery that brings this case to court, he'd practiced the pipes and he'd played them 4 to 5 times per week. More often during some summer competitions. He played at funerals, at weddings.
Okay, so I do love a good pipe or pipe band. I don't know if I would have wanted to be Robert's neighbor for those 4 to 5 days of practice. You know, I do hope that Robert lives on a country estate and not in a condo. But we'll see.
Okay, so he goes to his family dentist, Dr. Krikorian. He was just generally doing the, twice per year, getting the checkup, regular cleaning, etc. He took x-rays as part of an examination, and he was told that his wisdom teeth were impacted. I believe it was all four.
Sounds pretty common.
Pretty common. I'd say probably less so of someone that age, maybe. I have all of my wisdom teeth,
I do not.
so my wisdom is intact, unlike
I've
Stan's.
lost all mine.
So he's told he should have them removed. He accepts that advice. The procedure's explained, and it involves going under general anesthetic, removing the teeth. There'll be a recovery period. You'll be out of it for, about 3 or 4 days, eating ice cream, stuff like that.
Living the dream.
Taken into the surgery room. He gets knocked out. And then from that point, he doesn't really remember what happens. He wakes up, he's all groggy. Then there's kind of a bit of pandemonium, commotion. He gets taken to the hospital in Guelph, the Guelph General. He's still pretty groggy. He can't really remember what's going on. He kind of just comes around from the surgery, and it's like 12 hours later, and his jaw had been wired shut because it had been fractured. So basically, during the extraction, too much force was used, and it ended up fracturing his jaw and causing nerve damage.
All of a sudden, I'm very happy my wisdom teeth are already out.
Yeah, well, and as we alluded to, there's no finding of negligence here, but there was some expert evidence back and forth, and it sounds like it is a pretty remote risk. Like in, I can't remember which one was which, but the fracture of the jaw was in the neighborhood of, one of the experts assessed it at like less than 0.05% chance. And the nerve damage was, I think, even less than that.
Yeesh.
In any event, he's the dental surgery goes wrong. He then goes to the Guelph General. That's why he has his jaw wired shut, because of the fracture. He's in the care ward there for 3 days. He's told what happened. He returns home. He's not able to work. It was difficult to talk and eat. I've never seen someone with a serious jaw injury as a client, but I mean, having your jaw wired shut, like no food, no eating, there's not really anything. That oral pain really kind of like lives with you right in your head.
Yeah,
So
some of the worst pain, right?
yeah,
Toothaches. Yeah.
yeah,
Well, this is far worse than that.
yeah.
Yeah.
He didn't have the energy to do his work because he's a construction laborer. So really, if he's not eating, it's not really doable for him to go and be a construction laborer.
Yeah, he's burning 4,000, 5,000 calories a day working
Yeah.
construction. You're not going to go very far with no food in you.
So he's laying around the house. He's uncomfortable. He's miserable. His wires are removed. I have a date in here. I think it was about 4 weeks later. He has the wires taken out. And at that stage, he could not move his mouth much, even with the wires pulled out. And the period in which he had his wires shut, he's basically like mashed potatoes and Boost, which are those like nutritional meal replacements. So pretty grim. He's struggling to sleep. And then when they remove the wire, he's still having issues. He's still having issues with eating, and he's still in some pain. And he's off work for essentially a full 8-week period. And he'd started this new construction labor job not long before this happened. And then he lost it because he had to take so much time off. So he actually, it's not just that he was off work and lost his job.
And maybe didn't even have benefits available to him if it was so close to his start date. He wouldn't have had those. I don't know.
Well, it's not referenced in the case. My assumption would be that he wouldn't, but maybe we need a labor and employment law to come on and chime in. but he takes a new job, and it's like demonstrably less in wages, not massively, but
It's a pay cut regardless.
yeah, it's a pay cut based on what's available. And then the following year, he decides like he's done being a construction laborer and starts his own concrete forming business. Um, for that year, basically, he's tender in the lower jaw, and he has numbness and tingling in his lower lip and chin on the right side. And this is the key thing. Because of the numbness and tingling, he's unable to play the bagpipes in the same way he used to.
But he can still play them.
He can still play, and this is a quote from the case, he cannot produce the great big sound he once could.
Okay.
At the time this is tried, he now only practices 1 time per week with the band instead of 4 times per week with the band. He's given up playing at funerals and weddings, which
Okay.
is, I feel like funerals are a pretty big part of being a bagpiper.
I think so, yeah.
And the enjoyment he got from playing the pipes is greatly decreased. So, at the time of trial, his symptoms are basically slight numbness, faint pins and needles, some kind of like a tiny bit of tenderness.
Okay.
It's
Is the
described.
pins and needles, to the extent it mentions, is that constant? We're going to assume it's
It's
constant.
described as very faint.
Okay.
That was basically the finding of fact, and what he testified to. By the time of trial, he actually testified he had full mobility of his mouth and lips. He testified his symptoms.
Okay.
Yeah, I've never tried to elicit evidence on that issue, but
No.
I don't know.
But you haven't
I
had
don't.
any pipers.
I haven't had any pipers.
Yeah.
He testified that his symptoms plateaued about 3 years ago. This is by the time we're at trial. It took forever to get to trial. It's a 2012 decision. Um, and then the findings of fact. So these are some specific quotes from the judge. So the judge says, I accept that the injuries described herein occurred. There is no issue in that regard. Robert had his jaw fractured and wired shut for an 8-week period. He was hospitalized for a period thereafter and was in a great deal of pain. He was unable to work and lost a job as a result. He had to eat primarily liquids and was, for this extended period, miserable. I accept that in relation to the fracture, as said by his wife Karen, he was back to his old self within 10 weeks, being 2 weeks after the wires were removed. I accept the area of law was tender for a more extended period of up to a year. And I accept that Robert is left with permanent numbness to the right side of his lips and chin as a result of nerve damage caused by the jaw fracture. So, now, he goes on to basically say, essentially, sorry, I can't recall the name of the judge, but the judge basically held that this case is about bagpipes and Robert's love of bagpipes, and the extent to which he plays, he competes, he does funerals and weddings, playing with the band is part of his social life, and there's also just an enjoyment factor of being like, I used to be at this level, now I'm at this level. And I would say in the background, I mean, maybe from the outside perspective, it wouldn't even be noticeable, but perhaps that feeling of I used to do anything at an elite level, and now I do it at a level where I know in my mind I'm way below the level I used to be at.
Okay.
So, general damages for essentially nerve numbness and pain with pretty much an 8 to 10 week pretty miserable period in which your jaw is fractured and you lost your job.
So I think the jaw fracture and that first period of time is probably worth 100 at least. I mean, we see broken ankles that get you up to that sort of number. So I'm going to say that's a baseline of about 100 for the jaw acute time period, and then the prolonged period of not being able to play and the numbness and so forth. I'm going to go 175, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was closer to 2. That's my guess.
I'm gonna give you some moderating facts.
Okay.
And the
That was a
moderating
sign that I'm not close. So let me hear them.
So the moderating facts are this judge hates people who play bagpipes. No, the moderating facts
He's
are
Robert's neighbor. He's been listening
Yeah.
to the bagpipes for 4 times a week for the last 32 years.
Yeah, no,
New judge, please.
the moderating facts are that this is a very condensed period of time, right? So he does fracture of his jaw, but again, he's back to normal within 10 weeks. That's
Okay.
what his wife
All right.
says.
So it's not even 3 months later that he's a normal, back to his normal self.
Now, there's that numbness that persists,
Okay.
but he's not in agonizing pain, and he's basically going about his life, and his wife says he's back to his normal self 10 weeks later.
Robert's wife's a terrible witness. This is a lesson. Make sure to check what they're going to say before you put them on the stand.
Well, she's just incredible. I mean,
she also hates the bagpipes. She's never listened in his house for 4 days. So, okay. So,
I think more accurately, Karen is an incredibly honest witness.
God bless her for that. So I'm going to say 125.
So, general damages were assessed at $35,000.
That's it? For 10 weeks of having your jaw broken and wired shut? That is unbelievable.
Now, inflation adjusted, that's $48,000.
Right, I didn't do the inflation adjustment, but still.
He does get other damages, like which I didn't write down. They weren't super significant, but it was. I'm sorry, he got none of these damages, but he was assessed as having income loss damages.
Can't believe this. Like, I don't know. For me, a broken jaw and a broken ankle, I'd take the broken ankle over the broken jaw, but maybe not if he's back after 10 weeks. It just sounds so brutal. And I know that we get up higher, or we get over those $90,000 on broken ankles routinely. So
I think what it comes down to is, I think the length of time really, really, really matters.
Yeah.
And even if you have something that's very painful or super unpleasant,
if it's brief
and you get to the stage where you are essentially back to normal, I don't think the courts really assess general damages very high in those brief period of time cases.
Yeah, I guess I underappreciated the time that he was recovered by and really back to normal.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. If you have something horrific happen and 10 months later you're back to normal, I think the courts really just kind of say, well,
35,
35. So 48 today.
Like 50 grand total for 12 weeks of suffering. Yeah, I guess if you look at it as a less than 3 months thing, I don't know, you lose your job, you're like, big part of your life, that's 4 days a week, is gone.
What's not really clear on is necessarily whether the bagpiping issue and those deficits are really still affecting his life today.
They must not have actually been impaired, because that's the thing, is we don't compensate for injury, we compensate for impairment.
Right.
We compensate for what's the things you can't do. And if he had gone back to piping, even if it was at a reduced capacity, if it was like he was 98% of the piper he used to be, I guess it's different than if you're 50% or something like that.
And I think, the thing is, it's basically some of his evidence that was found as fact was basically, I used to practice with my band 4 times a week. Now I practice once a week. I would say by kind of most accounts, that's you spend a significant amount of your time playing bagpipes.
Yeah.
And
but he can still do it, right? And he obviously can still do it to the extent that a band is prepared to keep him on, which means how bad is it really? Not noticeable to your average listener, maybe. And therefore, not that significant at the end of the day. So, all right, I'll take the loss on that. That's a huge loss, but I'm going to now advocate really hard for those with broken jaws.
I would I think
remarkable.
And I would also I just haven't had many clients where they've been Actually, no, I had one client who was a high-level musician. He was a drummer with a knee issue.
Okay.
But
so you can't hit that foot pedal very well.
Yeah, haven't gone to trial on one, but I think that would be
Make
with
sure the judge is not the case, the neighbor in the
yeah.
case. If he's practicing the drums, and you don't want that, and let his partner know. Yeah, pump those numbers up a little bit.
So we're moving on to boat law.
Yes,
And
the topic of this episode.
and I don't have a lot of experience with boats. I know a bit about boat liability, which we'll be discussing,
Yeah,
and from an insurance perspective. Whereas you told me yesterday that you do in fact have your pleasure craft operator's license.
I do. Yeah, I have driven motorboats before, kayaks, canoes, etc. So lucky enough to have a family cottage and get on the lake, and also friends, similar situation. So yeah, I've got some familiarity with boats and what's required with them. I'm not like some of the maritimers here, ocean going
Right.
vessels and things like that. But I think most people in the Ottawa area are familiar with cottaging and lakes, and
Mm-hmm.
that's really where our emphasis is going to be here, not on ocean going sea vessels, right?
Yeah,
Ships, right? This is boats, not ships.
and I think the cases I've worked on, I think what comes up with clients is kind of a misunderstanding about the insurance aspect of it in particular. So, I think the place to start off is looking at boat accidents versus car accidents and how they're different and why the insurance or how the insurance is different.
Yeah.
So,
Well, let's start with what I think is the biggest difference. Insurance is not compulsory for those who own a boat. You do
right.
not need to have it insured. If you're out on the lake and the OPP comes by, they can ask you about life jackets and whistles and bailing buckets and all those sorts of things. But whether or not that boat has insurance is not an obligation. Whereas motorists on the road with cars, it's compulsory. You have to
Hmm.
have auto insurance if you're going to have a vehicle on the road.
Yeah. And the consequence of that is you can do a lot of damage or destruction with your boat to other people or other property. And if you do not have insurance, it's not so much about the damage to your boat, it's whether you have liability insurance and
That's
what
it.
it's if you get sued because someone died uh while wakeboarding off the back of your boat and you don't have liability insurance, then your cottage and your house are likely going to be the target of that lawsuit, versus the insurance policy.
That's right. Yeah. Like everything, I find our clients are always initially focused on their property. I'm going
Hmm.
to insure my car because I like my car and it's
Right.
valuable. And if it gets destroyed in an accident, I want my investment money back in this car. People rarely think about the liability exposure and why the insurance is there to cover them for, mistakes you make while driving. Same thing with the boat. So if you have a big, fancy, expensive boat, you're far more likely to have it insured, and that insurance is going to have liability coverage on it. If you bought a boat at a garage sale for almost nothing and you store it outside all winter and it really has no value other than putzing around on the lake once or two times a year, you're far less likely to think, well, maybe I should put some insurance on this boat.
Hmm.
Or you're thinking, why would I insure it if the insurance premium is more than the boat's worth?
Right.
But you're not thinking about all the litany of things that can go wrong while you're out on the lake. And it's it's crazy because we do go out on lakes all the time. We do enjoy our summer times in Canada, but a lot can go wrong. I don't mean to be like a doomsayer on this. Have fun, get out there, do it responsibly, do it safely. But this is something that everybody who owns a cottage should think about.
Yeah, and as you said, I think some people kind of, when they have the boat, they're thinking about the property damage. They also perhaps think that they have coverage because they have a home insurance policy, but uh, they're all a bit different. But all the ones I've read through, they either just don't have any coverage for boats. It's not like, you have your possessions, you have your house, you have the shed, you have the tools in your shed.
Yeah,
You'd think, oh, is my boat covered? And the answer is probably not. Most of the time, from a liability perspective, there's very strict limits based on either size of the boat or displacement of the engine or horsepower of the engine. So a lot of the ones I've seen are like 25 horsepower limit for a boat. So, if you have a kind of a very small rubber dinghy that you're taking out on the lake, perhaps there's some insurance coverage for that. But
Yeah, you might be able to, if you've got like a 15-foot or 10-foot aluminum boat that you've got a little, 9 horsepower engine on or something, you're just doing some fishing, maybe that's covered. I would say, err on the side of caution, contact your insurance broker
mhm,
and make sure that you do have coverage available for that. Where we do see compulsory insurance is if you are docking your boat at a marina. Let's
mhm,
say you're on the St. Lawrence
mhm.
somewhere, or you're on Lake Ontario, or you're just at a really large lake and you have a marina that you park your boat at. They typically will require you to have insurance for that. And they'll typically require you to have insurance if you're financing your boat. That's more on the property side than anything else. But those are the few cases where we do see compulsory insurance. And, you know, a lot of people, I'd say the majority of people, don't think of it that way because they are not obligated to have it when they just buy a regular old outboard that they want to take the family water skiing behind.
Yeah. And the liability risks of having a boat can be pretty significant, and alcohol and boats pretty commonly end up getting mixed, unfortunately. And when that happens, both the risk of injury or death go up, but also one of the things which is kind of a bit outside the personal injury sphere, but does come up, is a lot of people are kind of surprised to learn that uh, the same charge for driving while impaired applies on boats.
Yeah, I didn't know that actually. And it's not just motorboats. What else does?
Oh, kayaks, canoes, yeah,
Isn't that crazy? You can get dinged for DUI while kayaking.
yeah,
You think I'm going to be responsible and I'm going to kayak across the lake to go visit my friends, so I don't need to drive around the whole lake and come back. And there's no Ubers maybe, so I'm going to take my kayak. I'm going to go visit my neighbor, maybe have a couple too many, and then the OPP is out on the lake and they pull you over for kayaking while impaired. I mean, it's unlikely, obviously. I
hmm
think there's probably not a lot of those cases out there, but that is something I
you,
did not
yeah,
appreciate.
flagrantly drunk
Yeah.
kayaking, I
I mean, don't
suppose.
get
Yeah,
hammered in kayak.
you're
It's
right.
just not wise for a lot of reasons, obviously. But if you did need that extra incentive to think about it twice,
hmm
yes, you can. And you were saying lose demerit points for it and have it
I
reflected
I
on your
believe.
insurance record
Well, yeah, you can have your driver's license taken away to drive a car because you have an impaired operation charge.
of a
That
canoe.
well, yeah, I mean, that's what I believe it would be, because it's the same charge. It's like the same operating a conveyance charge. If you're charged with operating a conveyance under the influence of alcohol,
Yeah.
then there's essentially one set of penalties, and so you could lose your car license for, I'd say, the more obvious cases when you're driving your boat and you
Right. Yeah.
blow over uh,
See that I
zero
certainly
point 0.8.
understood, right? You can't be, and that's in the materials about pleasure craft operating licensing and everything. You can't, obviously, don't everybody don't drink and operate a boat at all. Obviously, don't drink and kayak and canoe either. Lots of things can go wrong, and on water the consequences are way worse than on land,
Yeah.
right? You
Well,
have
you're
a
also
high likelihood of drowning.
you're also going to avoid your insurance policy.
Yeah, so
So-
it's just a terrible idea on a number of fronts. It might seem fun at the time, but there's laws for that for reasons, and it's just incredibly dangerous.
Mhm. So, I suppose the takeaways are, if you have a boat and you're just not sure if you have a dedicated boat insurance policy, contact your insurer, see whether or not the boat you have is one that is covered under your homeowner's insurance policy, with a focus on liability insurance, because that's what is really going to do the protection here. And if they do not have coverage for the boat, then I guarantee that they will be able to arrange for liability insurance for your boat.
Yeah, it's super common. Every insurer that is insuring a property that is on a lake should also be capable of writing you a policy for your boat.
Yeah, and with that protection, it just means that, tubing, wakeboarding, water skiing, you just know that you're not. We know these are some level of danger, um, the majority of the time they're completely safe. But when something does go wrong, you know that you're not going to actually like lose your house over something, and that you'll have a policy in place and it will offer you some protection from, what could be an extremely expensive lawsuit.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that happy note, I think it's time we conclude.
We'll say our goodbyes. So you can find our team at nelliganlaw.ca.
New website.
New website, very flashy. I did a deep dive with our marketing manager, Hannah Saunders, in our sister podcast about design and what went into the font selection. It was very enjoyable.
We had a whole discussion about fonts. I wasn't there for that. I like the new font. I'm time to move on from Times New Roman. We talked about the Roman Empire in the past. Big fan of the Roman Empire, but 2,000 years for a font is long enough. Get those serifs out of there. Time for some new age fonts.
So you can find me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/hmillsmcewen, and maybe I'll be posting about legal fonts. Who knows?
Yeah, we can fight about that, I think, if you want. I think we're on the opposite side of that, but you can find me on LinkedIn as well, linkedin.com/Stanford Cummings. You can just Google either of us and we'll pop up on the new website.
Yep.
If you have any comments or questions, topic suggestions, if you think we got something wrong and you want to tell us that, obviously I was way off on the guess, but if you've had your jaw broken and you think you're worth more than $35,000 and you agree with me, I'd like to hear from you as well. You can email us at civilbanter@nelliganlaw.ca.
Okay.
Like, comment, subscribe.
Goodbye.